excited to introduce Eddie. He's the founder and chief scorer. He's an Aussie, now based in New York, and he's a visionary entrepreneur. He's passionate about team performance and creating environments where people and teams thrive. Before founding Score, he co-founded and led Tiny Beans, which was a family-focused app that went public under his leadership, earning a reputation for fostering strong company cultures and driving engagement. Previously, he was the CEO of Unique World, a tech consulting firm, which he scaled and successfully before its acquisition by Jacobs Engineering in 2011. At Score, Eddie is committed to helping CEOs prioritize leaders and their teams as a strategic advantage. By providing benchmark insights, Score empowers organizations to create environments where people can do their best work, driving both high performance and profitability. Eddie, welcome to the stage, and thanks again for being here, man.
Thanks so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. Hi, everyone. Wonderful to be here. Thanks, Zach. Let's get started. Well, hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Thanks so much, Zach. Thanks for inviting me to come and talk to you today and the topic that I love, which is all about teams. So a little bit about me, if you don't know me, and I guess, Zach gave it away with originally an Aussie, born and raised, but now I call New York home. And I'm a big fan of sharing a little bit more about me so you get to know me as a human as opposed to just all about, the talk of work. I'm a big fan of golf. I love golf, play on the weekends, especially in the summertime, based here in New York. I've been playing piano since the age of 4 or 5. And although I don't play a hell of a lot, I'm usually the karaoke guy when my friends come over and after 10 p.m. all claim to have wonderful voices. So I'm on the piano when they sing and belting out some tunes, which is always fun. I do these crazy races called Spartan races, and if I can convince my kids and anyone that I speak to do them. And there's a photo of my family married with 4 boys, 2 of which we dropped to college last week and 1 left at home now. So that's a bit about me to get to know the real Eddie. So back in '99, I had this web company, consulting company. We were doing reasonably well. We basically rode the waves of the internet times and obviously the downtime of the internet through 2000, 2001. Rebuilt 2003, continued to build out the business. And probably about 2007, 2008, we were about 85 people, doing about 10 million in revenue, about 15% profit, and doing reasonably well. 15% net profit was pretty good for a consulting services company. If people were to ask me about my culture, I would say, a pretty good culture, or collaborative. I think our core values at the time were people, integrity, and excellence. Maybe they're obligatory. They would not be there today, but that's what it was at the time. And I thought we had a pretty good culture. We was always about the teams, always about the individuals, and really, built what I thought, a thriving environment. I'm not sure if you all remember what happened September 2008, but the financial crisis really hit us. And I'm sure some of you as well, and everyone was a different moment in time, but we had our 4 biggest clients terminate their contracts within a week. And we went from having about 75 billable people, which is the lifeblood of consulting companies, as most of you would know, to 20 within a week. So our 4 biggest companies, the 4 biggest contracts is basically terminated, and we were hemorrhaging cash hand over fist. And through those months of October, November, December of 2008, it was horrifically tough. We went from going, amazingly well to really, looking to potentially, just survive, right? So, and what was interesting through that time, and now upon reflection, I've really learned, but those 3 months was really the most difficult time I think I had in that business, where here I am thinking we had a great culture, but then sales started to blame delivery. It was delivery's fault as to why these clients were terminating. If the delivery team were doing a great job, then they wouldn't have terminated these contracts. And then delivery teams were blaming sales. It's sales' fault that we don't have more work. Yes, these clients terminated, but we should have other projects and other customers in the pipeline. And here we are, in an environment where I thought we had a wonderful culture to actually a blame culture. Sales were blaming delivery was blaming sales, and we were struggling. We're hemorrhaging $250,000 a week and didn't know what to do. And through that time, we clearly had to make some very difficult decisions. And unfortunately, that was part of that was to let people go and really, reset the business. So in January 2009, like 3-4 months later, we reset the business with 30 people in the business. So, we had to let about 50 people go, which was incredibly tough. What's interesting through that time is really around, yes, it's difficult for the people that leave the business, but actually, the learning I've had is actually even more difficult for the people that remain because they don't know what's next. There's this uncertainty. With the people that leave, there's this certainty about that. Yes, it's hard and you have to figure out what's next, but in the business, you actually don't know. You got to survive, you're going to be next on your being let go. It's very tough. So I came across this book. I was invited to read it called The Great Game of Business in January 2009. And I thought, well, it's all about reinventing your business and focusing on people at the center. So I'm going to rebuild this culture from people in the center. And when I say that, what we did was focused on everything around people. We're focused on transparency, focused on learning growth mindset, focused on a one team culture and a one reward system culture. Some of the learnings that I had here through this transformation, I'll share in today's content, but really it was all about the people, literally every possible way around the people. And what happened through the years of 2009, 2010, 2011, we rebuilt the business. We got to about 100 people. We got to about 14 million, 15 million in revenue. We got to 22% net profit. And that was giving away 7% in bonuses. So in just 3 years, we went from a business going out the back door through a very difficult time to actually a thriving business. We increased our profits by 50%, from 15% to 22%, because we focused on our people. So if anyone says there's no ROI in people and they need to get the ROI with culture, I've got firsthand experience. It's absolutely a must to have. And that really brings us to a lot of the content I'm going to talk about today is around there's a business case for teams, there's a business case for culture. And we use the word teams, not loosely, but in a very functional way, because I've learned that the whole organization is a team. A sales department is a team. Every location is a team. So we think about, you're going to hear the word team a lot today, all the people you work with is a team. And what we're trying to do is bring the science of sports teams, actually, and the learning that we've had in building companies and teams to the fore today. And here is an example, not just from me, but actually third-party validated with hundreds of companies that you focus on your people and teams. There's a 3 and 4x return over the 10-year period of revenue and profit growth. So it is absolutely unequivocal now that focusing on people and teams gives a standout growth. And what we want to talk about today is all that hidden stuff. What we talk about in our world at SCORE is what we call the 7 critical muscles of high-performing teams. And I'm going to unpack each of these today to really explain them in a lot more detail because they often have different definitions. Accountability, transparency, healthy conflict, growth mindset, adaptability, recognition, and goals and rewards. And we feel that every team needs these 7 muscles. And clearly, each team has different developmental stages of these muscles. But in order to get through any situation, any stage of growth, any acceleration, you need these 7 muscles. And they come in just like in any, high performance sport. You need muscles at different times. Pick any sport you like. You need different muscles from acceleration, from reflection, and all these different things come into play. And we'll always talk with our leaders, our clients around these 7 muscles. So let's unpack them and give more detail and all the rest of it. So let's talk about accountability, a critical one. What's interesting about accountability is that I would say most people know what accountability is, right? Accountability is all about having a very clear understanding of your role. But accountability doesn't stop there. True accountability of teams is actually not only knowing your role, but it's knowing all the team's roles, every other role in the organization, every other role in your team. Because you can't perform your job effectively if you don't know what the role of others are in your team. That's why this is such a powerful visual. Notice how, in a classic relay race, people are running in anticipation of expecting something from another team member. There's this understanding. You're already exerting force. You're exerting that aspect. So accountability is a critical piece of not just understanding your role, understanding your other people in your teams and about how you work together, but it's also knowing those accountabilities actually helps you call them out if they're not being held. Accountability is a two-way street. You know where you are, you know where your team members are at, but you can hold each other accountable and reflect on that. This is a classic, scary fact. 56% of employees don't know what's expected of them. Just pause and you digest that. So what this says is half the people in all your organizations don't know what's expected of them. It's a Gallup stat that came out earlier this year. It is scary. So what's important about this is that even the fundamental aspects of roles, responsibilities, just we're not doing a great job of it out there. So can you imagine a sports team where the player on the field doesn't know their role, doesn't know they're expected to catch, they're expected to run, they're expected to pause, hold up. So this is what's happening in our workplaces today. So accountability is a critical muscle of high-performing teams, and half of the teams out there don't know what's expected of them. So what we're trying to do is really elevate this muscle of teams. And I invite you to ask your teams these basic questions. Does everyone know what's expected of them? Does everyone know what each other's expectations are? How do we hold each other accountable? And are we holding each other accountable? Is the manager holding everyone accountable? Are the team members holding the manager accountable? I don't know, that sort of obviously it trades into other perhaps difficult waters of conflict, but we'll get to that shortly. But even the basics of accountabilities and roles and responsibilities just are not done well. So it's an opportunity for all of you and the organizations to really elevate this and understand and ask people, do you know what's expected of you? Do you know what's expected of others? So one pro tip, which I think is a great tool out there, if you haven't heard of this tool before, it's called an accountability chart, where I'm sure most of you are familiar with an org chart. An org chart is where you're designing teams, organizations around people. An accountability chart is around accountability. So you park the people to the side, you focus on what are the accountabilities of this team, what are expected accountabilities of this team, and then you put names in the boxes afterwards. And what you'll find sometimes actually is that some people may be in 2 or 3 boxes. Well, that might be an issue. Maybe you have 1 or 2 boxes that don't have people. That's also an issue. But at least elevating the issue and then understanding that will then allow you to take action accordingly. So accountability chart is a wonderful tool. And the other thing I definitely would encourage you to think about, for those of you in organizations where you can look at leadership principles, leadership training, is that managers are often pretty good at thinking their team knows what's expected of them, or thinking what the team members are accountable to. I'd invite them to ask them. And I'd also verify, are those managers holding those people accountable? I think that being held accountable is a very different muscle that often is not flexed with people actually know the accountabilities. And those two have to go hand in hand. You can't have a culture of accountability without being actually held accountable. And people need to be comfortable to do that. So accountability is a wonderful one. That really is a critical piece to get going with any team, because if people don't know what even the basics of roles are, you're going to have a very hard time in getting performance. Let's talk about the next one, transparency. Transparency, again, like it's an overused word, I find, but it's really about alignment and trust. When teams are transparent, everyone's on the same team. When things are being hidden, when things are being misconstrued, when things are basically only showing information when things are good, as opposed to all the time, it doesn't breed trust, which doesn't breed performance. Transparency is about leaning into the realities. Find me a sports team that gets the scoreboard hidden when they're losing. Just pause and think about that. Imagine going to a sports game, and when the team starts to lose, we take that score off the board. That's kind of what a lot of teams do. When information's bad or our results are bad, oh, we don't share that with the teams. What do you mean? You have to share. If you're being transparent, if you're aligning the team, it's got to be transparent 100% of the time, not selective transparency. That's not transparency. And managers model this. It aligns goals, and also managers and leaders invite openness. Go, hey, this isn't working well. What can we do about it? As a team, managers don't need to solve our problems. Leaders don't need to solve the problems. They need to invite questions to have the team solve the problems. The transparency is often this like selective transparency muscle that just is this wasted. you might as well not tell anything to your team rather than show some information at all. And this is another one, just that, like, just again, hits you like a rock. Strong management transparency leads to 30% better retention. That's a stat done by hundreds of companies as part of this sample research. 30% better retention. So if your retention is currently, 80%, 70%, we know how much it costs us to retain our people and replace our people. It's like, often 250% is the cost of the employee to replace them, least of all the institutional knowledge you're going to lose because you're replacing them. So again, strong management transparency. And here we are hiring people on teams, trying to engage them to do obviously deliver on the performance, but then when things are bad, we don't tell them because they're not quite smart enough or mature enough to know. Like, it's complete a myth. It's such nonsense out there, and it infuriates me when I speak to leaders about that stuff, about not sharing the realities, good or bad. So it's all about connecting, building trust. I'll often invite leaders to do some of this stuff and understanding the why behind decisions. Often decisions are made and teams don't know why they're made. They kind of like have to accept it. And I get the fact that sometimes leaders have to make those tough decisions, but I invite leaders to explain the why, explain the context. And it's not to provide a justification, it's to provide the why to align and get buy-in. Because when you make a decision and people don't accept your why, they're not bought in. When I say not bought in, not by what they say, but what they do. Just because they're agreeing with you in a team because they feel uncomfortable to share otherwise, that doesn't mean they've actually bought into the why. So again, some simple tools and tips. What are the goals and metrics? Are they available to everyone in your team? What are your metrics? What are the team's metrics? How do you drive performance and results? And you get to share news, good and bad. I'd invite actually teams to share more bad news. We'd often have in my last organization, we have a weekly wins and fails meeting. You share your wins for the week and fails for the week. We're going to lean into like the good and the bad, because learning comes from the failures or the mistakes typically. Very few learnings come from the wins. So again, here's a tip to take a weekly agenda meeting, which hopefully you all have agenda meetings or meetings with agendas, and add 1 or 2 elements about the why, the goals, the decisions, and invite people to question the why. But that's how you build trust and visibility. And it can get uncomfortable because maybe you're making a decision that maybe people don't buy into. The best way to get buy-in, although they mightn't agree, is to share the why. And sometimes that's okay. They just have to accept the why. But at least you've gone to the trouble to explain it, builds trust and transparency, and clearly connection as a team. Healthy conflict, the elephant in the room. Again, out of all the clients we work with and leaders, this is probably the weakest muscle. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because I think it has the biggest upside too, right? And it's like feedback is often a difficult conversation. It's a difficult thing to raise, and a lot of training around healthy conflict. And when I say healthy conflict, it's about no drama. I'm not inviting the drama of the day. I'm inviting basically other people's opinions. I'm inviting your people to basically the naysayers in the room objectively, right? Healthy conflict is all about aligning on what could be the best outcome and the best idea. And when people don't necessarily agree with that, it's all about encouraging the idea to be disputed and debated, not the person themselves. And this is part of the muscle the teams need to obviously focus on, but debate is a critical piece. If teams are not debating on topics, working through conflict, they'll never be at high performance. You're wasting and investing all this time and money in team meetings. If you added up the cost of that meeting, if we're not solving problems as a team, it's a waste of a team meeting. I mean, clearly there's obviously exceptions. Team meetings need to be solving problems. The only way to solve problems is to lead into conflict, disputes, disagreements, debates. Yes, it gets uncomfortable, but that's kind of the beauty of the debate. You want to be able to focus on the efforts, and the leader is all about encouraging that. So healthy conflict is a really key muscle I wish more teams had. How's this stat? Less than half of your employees feel safe speaking up. Half the people in your teams are afraid to say what they think. Can you imagine that? So if they're saying they're scared to speak up when they disagree, that's also meaning they're afraid to speak up with an idea. So we're losing half your team's ability to even share an idea. And that idea could be transformational to performance. It could be transformational in culture. It could be transformational in so many ways. But the fact that if we're limiting people's opinions in times when it's difficult, we're limiting their opinions in all other times too, because they're going to say it's not worth it. Like, I'm not going to share my ideas if they're going to, obviously throw it away. Again, like, it's all about trying to encourage people speaking up and inviting the debate, inviting these things, because people won't raise their alarm bells. So when things aren't going well, they're not going to raise their alarm bells either. So again, like, you can't pick and choose these muscles when they suit you. These are muscles, they should always be there no matter what. And I'd invite you to think about these things as questions. Like, how do we get different perspectives? How do we get different ideas? I'll often, with our clients, talk about the concept of discuss, decide, support. We discuss an issue, we discuss it or debate it, and we support them. Meaning, when we leave the room, everyone's on the same page. Yes, you may disagree with the decision, but at least you've been invited to respond and provide a differing opinion. But that's a really critical piece of feedback and discuss, deciding, supporting. And I think feedback is a gift. I mean, healthy conflict is in the context of this, but healthy conflict could be in a one-on-one as well. Like, you're inviting feedback, you're inviting other perspectives. And here's a great tip that I'll often encourage our teams to do is like, okay, great, we've decided this idea, or this is the path we're going forward. What if it fails? What could go wrong? What could we do differently? And it keeps the debate and the discussion around the topic at hand, and ideally leaves the egos out of the room. Because often the person who says the same idea 2 or 3 times, other people go, I'm not going to bother, they're just too loud. As a leader, it's really important to basically invite perspective from everyone in the team, not just from the leaders or the loudest. Often the best ideas come from the ones who listen more than speak. And it's about the leader's ability to really engage and invite ideas from everyone else. So, and again, like if someone asked me one thing a leader could do differently tomorrow to improve their leadership skills, is to finish their statements with a question mark rather than a period. Questions, questions, questions. Healthy conflict is a great way to solve the questions. If a leader is uncomfortable with healthy conflict, lead into questions. Questions, questions, questions. Let's talk about growth mindset. And this is kind of an obvious one, but growth mindset's about learning, and learning comes from trying lots of things. But too often we'll work with teams and people don't feel like they can bring their best selves to work. If there's a question in an engagement survey, which infuriates me separately, but if there's engagement surveys out there, and one of the questions is, are you able to perform at your best or bring your best selves to work? And if that's not correlated with, are you also encouraged to fail lots in your job? All you've done is basically got wasted data. People need to be comfortable with failure in order to bring their best selves to work, in order to perform at their best. No, again, nearly all learning comes from failures and mistakes. Now, clearly there's failures are obviously a wide spectrum, and some failures could be very, very, scary. I'm talking about, in the majority of cases, like, learning is a muscle you want to develop daily, and you want to be trying new things daily. So growth mindset's about learning and obviously evolving. And the other thing, the learning happens in teams. Like, just because one person did something that didn't quite go according to plan, that should be shared learning within the team. Again, there's all sorts of opportunities. Here's another amazing stat. Organizations with a strong learning culture. So if you think you have a learning culture that's successful, report 11% higher profitability and are 2 times more likely to retain talent. 11% higher profits for more learning, and people will stay with you longer. If there's no ROI there in why you should stand up a leadership development program that we can't convince leadership on, I don't know what stat would. 2x improvement in retention and increased profitability by a learning culture. Learning culture is not just about giving them training programs. Learning culture is about every day, every week learning. So on your weekly team meeting, have it on the agenda. Basically, what did we learn this week? What did we fail on last week? How can we all get better? Like, again, a growth mindset's a really critical one about learning new things, applying new things, etc. So here are some examples. Are we encouraging learning? Is it fuel or friction? And again, like, are we experimenting? Again, like, what have we done differently, or what have we done recently to basically improve our performance, improve at our team? I've just mentioned about that, a pro tip, and I'll share these tips obviously in the deck with you later as well. Let's talk about adaptability. Adaptability is a critical muscle of high-performing teams. Too often we work with teams where here's the goal, here's the plan, and we have to get on with it. And unfortunately, things happen, and we have to be able to adapt. Adaptability is the ability to look at the facts, deal with the realities, and make the change. And leaders and teams need this adaptability. Again, if you go in with these plays, pick any sporting game, take football, you think this play is going to be the play, it didn't work, you have to adapt. And that adaptability muscle is a critical one. There's a great, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the book, The Great Game, Good to Great by Jim Collins. There's all great concepts in there, but one actually concept that I'm a big fan of that actually doesn't get as much airplay as a lot of other concepts, like getting people on the bus, getting them the right seats, etc., is what's called the Stockdale paradox. Stockdale paradox is this paradox around confronting the facts but believing in the faith. What does that mean? It means that you still believe in where you're going as a team, as an organization. You believe in where the future is. But you have to confront the facts today. You can't ignore the facts. Adaptability is a critical muscle to confront the facts and make change and be able to adapt critically. Here's another one. Employees of high adaptability 2.5 times more likely to deliver on greater performance. Why? Because they deal with the facts. They adapt. They roll with the punches. Take any type of statement, but it's really important to really look at the facts. That's why, going back to the facts, it's got to be in the team meeting. You got to be looking at the numbers. You got to look at the realities, and obviously drive that all forward, and then be able to adapt accordingly. Here are some tips you may consider. So, like, how do you quickly adapt? So the projects are off track. What do you do about it? Do you ask your team what to do with it? Do they tell you that you're off track? Do they know that when they're off track? What happens when they've lost confidence? That's another really hidden one that often we'll talk to teams about, and you kind of don't know. Kind of the team members have lost confidence in actually achieving the goal, but they don't say anything. And that's a really important one that you can't ignore. We call it's one of the blind spots, where the leader's still pushing everyone forward, and everyone's actually saying, yep, we can do it, but actually they have lost confidence in their ability to achieve the goals. And that's a tough one. I've not got like the perfect science for that, but the only thing I would encourage you to do is just keep asking the questions. Do we still think we can achieve this? What happened, do you think we can overachieve it? Do you think we'll get to we won't achieve it at all? If we underachieve it, what would happen to other projects? What would happen to our goals? Like, questions is the only way to try and sift through whether or not your team has lost faith, but they haven't said anything. So I would definitely encourage it. And the other thing is, projects and metrics need to have owners. It kind of touches accountability, but we haven't got time to go into it. But every metric has to be owned by someone, one person. Every project has to be owned by someone, one person. There's no scenario in the world where a metric is owned by 2 people. There's no scenario in the world where a project is owned by 2 people. You could have multiple people involved, multiple people leading it, multiple people basically involved with the metric, but one accountable owner. And yes, sometimes that could be an issue, because you go, well, actually there's 2 or 3 people involved with this. No problem. One has to take accountability. One is on the hook with a weekly meeting, talking about that number, talking about the plan, talking about the goals. If you have more than one person, as you all know, no one owns it. And you don't want 2 or 3 people blaming each other and giving you excuses. A wise coach told me years ago, don't expect, but inspect. Get to the root cause, understand the data, create action. You have to understand who owns projects, who owns metrics. If you don't, you're just going to be, again, blaming, and you don't want that culture of blame. Again, go back to sports. Every player has a metric, has a goal that they have. It's transparent, and they have to believe in it. So adaptability is the ability to really drive that. Obviously, projects is a critical piece about dealing with that. Recognition. Recognition is one of the most underplayed muscles of teams. And it's probably my favorite for high impact, low effort. I know, it happens. Not many things are low effort, high impact. And I'm not talking about, it really infuriates me when we talk to leaders and teams about, oh, we have a recognition program. It's like the once a month or once a quarter where managers have to nominate people, or the once a year we do these awards things, like the whole employee of the month thing. Sorry to tell you, everyone, That's old school and nonsense, and that's fail. It's a failure program. Don't bother. Because what we want to do is build teams where every person is recognized every day. The muscle of recognition happens daily. Like look at this image. 9:31 fits. Thank you, Tilly, for helping me on the project. 9:32. Coco says, Angus, thanks for being positive, supporting me on the team. 9:34. Ned recognizes Zane. Notice within 3 minutes, we've had 3 recognitions. Recognition happens daily, and it's the job for everyone. Too often, and I don't know where this came from, maybe the Industrial Revolution, people believe that the recognition is the muscle of a manager. Yes, of course the manager needs to have that muscle, but every team member needs to. Every team member, again, like, here's a classic, like if you all follow basketball, NBA, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when someone does a free throw, if they miss or if they get it, the rest of the team high fives the person doing the free throw. Like just pause and think about that. They all get recognition if they get the point or miss the point. Why? Recognition is the job of a team. It's peer-based recognition is the muscle, and it's just not done well at all, but I invite you to all do it. Here's a great one. Employees who don't feel recognized are 2 times more likely to quit. I know it's obvious. There's the data. 2 times more likely. And recognition is easy, and the recognition has to be specific. It can't just be, oh, great job, well done, useless. We have to recognize the behavior, have to be specific, because people will then be able to do it again. What are we recognizing for? What are the behaviors we want to see every day? What are the habits we want to create? And the other thing that's powerful in teams is that people get to see what other people are up to and how people work with each other. Thanks for helping me on this project. Thanks for working with me on this report. Thanks for staying longer to get this client deliverable out. It's got to be specific. It's got to be team-based. Everyone's part of it, not managers. And we would have basically, we use the tool called Hey Taco. If you don't know about it, it's an amazing tool for recognition, integrates the Slack and Teams. We've used it for 8-9 years now, and recommend it to our clients. Why? It's part of messaging. It's part of like you're doing your job. That's why integrated to another tool is really powerful. And also, the way it works is you get your 5 tacos, 5 people you recognize every day, and you can obviously redeem those tacos for points, right? Or for rewards, gift cards, lunches with the CEO, etc. But what's interesting about the recognition tool is that we weren't always only about recognizing the receivers. We also recognize the givers. People giving recognition as a team member is a really powerful element to reward and to celebrate, just like the givers and the receivers as well. So anyway, something to think about. Recognition is one of those wonderful muscles. High-performing teams must have it. Definitely encourage you to think about it. Goals and rewards. You know this photo. It's one of my favorite rugby teams of all time. Australia, they're not doing particularly well at the moment. But again, find me a sports team. Find me any team that don't know what winning. Define winning. Too often, teams and companies don't know what winning is. Let's define winning. And I'm not saying winning only by the profit and loss statement, because how many people are actually motivated by profit and loss or by revenue and profits? Nearly all people are motivated by a goal. What is that goal? I'm not here to say a goal has to be a profit. Actually, it shouldn't be profit. You clearly need financial goals, but North Stars are an underrated tool. What's our visionary North Star? What's winning defined by? And then not only the goal, but what's the reward when we get there? And again, it's too often, just ignored as a muscle, as a tool. We hear too often with our clients that the reward program is discretionary. Depending on how we go, we'll give a bonus. You're wasting your money. Any discretionary reward is a waste of money. Why? Because it hasn't delivered the purpose of motivating our teams. Rewards around motivation. You achieve the reward, you basically, you achieve the goal, you get the reward. You overachieve the reward, right? It's got to be linked. If you don't have performance and bonuses linked to goals, you're wasting your money, meaning we're on our way to achieving our goal, the bonus pool goes up. We have a bad quarter, the bonus pools goes down. People need to connect rewards with goals. If they're not connected, you're wasting your money. Here's another amazing stat. Teams with clear rewards and aligned rewards, 42% more likely to achieve high performance. 42%. If you take 1% more likely to achieve high performance, where do I sign up? Clear goals, clear rewards. And I get the fact that leaders are like, oh, we can't share the profit and loss. Okay, have another goal. You want to share profits? I'm not going to convince you otherwise. Have another set of goals. Find a goal that drives performance, and then link rewards to it. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. And it should be a customer-related goal so everyone can really relate to it. Most North Stars are. If you're interested, I've got tons of examples of North Stars I can talk about separately. But a North Star goal is a wonderful way to link a reward program and link that everyone is part of it and knows what's expected of them. Really critical piece. Huge stat here. So, what does success look like this week, this quarter? How are we tracking towards that link performance to reward? If you don't have it, you're wasting your money with any type of rewards program. And look, there's short-term rewards, long-term rewards. You don't have to be profitable. I've been in businesses where we weren't generating profits, so you can't give out cash. Been in businesses that we were generating profits, so we could give out cash. There's lots of ways that you could create rewards. It's not just about the financial. It could be more time off. It could be more learning. It could be more innovation. It could be all sorts of things. Rewards are a currency to figure out in your teams and cultures how that works. And if you're going, well, my organization will never sign up for this, there's too much red tape, just do something for your team. Create a reward program for your team. Do a little bit of money, do a little bit of a connection. And it doesn't have to be financial. It could be celebration. It could be tied to some sort of time off. It could be, again, so many different ways. So I don't accept the fact that if you're in too complex sales organizations, it won't work. Start small. You want to energize your team. Just think in a small way. And if you're not sure, invite your team. Go, hey, I want to create a rewards program. This is the budget I have. What do you all think? What would be success? Don't have to have the answers, just the questions. So I've talked about a lot of these things. These are 7 muscles of high-performing teams. Let's talk about some of the hidden drivers of profits. Now, hopefully some of this has been kind of obvious, but let's really bring it to a head that really connects it. Retention, our ability to retain more of the right people, reduce our churn, go straight to our bottom line. We all know it costs enormous amounts of money to replace the person, least of all find them. And I'm not even calculating recruitment fees if you use recruiters, but it's a lot of money in retention. Productivity loss. We capture productivity loss when we work with our clients. Why? It's a hidden profit driver. If you have hours a week that's wasted on the wrong things, redoing things and not knowing what to do, go straight to profits. How do we elevate accountability, elevate projects, elevate metrics so people aren't unproductive? They're productive. They know what's expected of them. They know what high performance is, and they know how they're rewarded for it is a hidden driver of profit. Recognition. You can't have highly motivated teams without recognizing their behaviors on a daily and weekly basis. People need to be recognized. Think about them like our children. We recognize our children, recognize our teammates. We have to recognize people in the workplace, no matter where and how they are. You'll drive straight to profits. Why? Because people like being recognized. People like hearing their names. They like knowing what they've done well so they can do more of it, because we like having impact on teams. And rewards, there's black and white data on this. I just shared some data as well. Rewards. People need to be connected to performance and rewards and winning. What's winning? What's reward? And connecting all the dots. So there's millions of dollars of wasted money that's burned away. We often call it burning Benjamins. We're burning money by not focusing on our teams, because this is where all these hidden profits are in your teams. So when you think about this going, well, I've got teams everywhere. Do you where are we going to go with this? How do we sort of look to solve this? But yeah, there's definitely an approach to do this your own way, right? One-on-one interviews, you probably do some engagement surveys, you probably get some data from managers, but it's really tough. Where's the accountability? Where's the alignment? How do you bring it all together? But there's definitely lots of ways to do it, but it's lots of guesswork. But it's hard to really connect the dots from a true performance output perspective. So what SCORE is about taking this guesswork and replacing it with the ability to be much more intentional. So I'm not here to do a whole pitch around the product, but just to give you sort of the connection of the soul, because a lot of this is really upside. Is SCORE basically allows you to evaluate and assess your teams. What are those hidden profits? Where are those leadership blind spots? Questions we ask managers are different to the questions we ask team members. Why are there blind spots? Because we need to understand how managers lead and how team members receive that leadership. And we're identifying the blind spots. You get sort of a roadmap of it all, and it's tied to performance. You have to connect the behaviors of a team to the performance at the end of the day. So kind of like driving, again, you're trying to assess those behaviors and be able to drive those performances. And that's why it's about, you could do it yourself manually, or you could obviously do it objectively through this performance platform we have. And I don't have a lot of time. I'm really, on time for what I'm going to wrap up with. So just quickly, this is a platform that we built. I'm not going to spend time on this. We've got a whole bunch of samples on our website. It's a whole bunch of data on assessing and providing a roadmap and a business case of how much profit you're missing out on. I just want to bring this to a head so we can have a bit more, the last few minutes for questions. And then if people want to know more, please feel free to reach out, and I'll be around later to talk on the networking. But if you can take any of these things away, start by taking some action. If you take one of these ideas out of all the lots that I shared today, just get it going. Just start going. Start measuring stuff. Start engaging your teams. We often say start with the basics: ready, fire, aim. Just start with something. Do not create the perfect plan to then perfectly launch it. Just start. Progress over perfection, no matter what. If any of the ideas that we've shared today resonate, just start with that one. Start with a small team, pilot it, learn from it, adapt, try it again, do it with other teams. Rinse and repeat. Review the learnings, keep at it. CultureCon community is incredible community. Try these things, share it with others, learn from it. Is a wonderful way. If you're curious about how SCORE works, there's a preview on our website. Go to getscore.com, or you can scan this, and you can also get to it. It's a free preview of how it works. And that's basically it. That's a wrap for me. Happy to answer some questions today, and that's my details if you'd like to get hold of me after the webinar. So I just pause there and invite Zach back to help out on any questions that have been thrown up today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eddie. Another dynamite presentation as usual. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll happily get those answered in the next couple minutes here. While you're throwing your questions in the chat, just a quick reminder of what's yet to come is our networking session. So if you see on the top right of your screen here where it says floor broadcast in progress recording, under that is the elevator. You would just click on that and go to the networking floor. I'll be there, Eddie will be there, other culture geeks will be there, and we'll just have some time to network, and you can ask Eddie any questions face-to-face as well. But yeah, Eddie, I love the presentation. I think specifically because you talk about how like it can be very complex and kind of scary when you think about doing this, but you gave so many actionable takeaways, and the one I picked up was just like start small. If you work at a big company and you're part of a team, you can just start with your team. How do we energize those individuals? It doesn't have to be a cash bonus, but something simple as recognition or some extra paid time off or volunteer time off, and kind of let that ripple effect take place. And that really stuck out to me.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of, it's got to be actionable, and you just want to try stuff, because teams will respond to different things, and these ideas will resonate with each of the people listening, right? So some things maybe, to your point, recognition. I mean, other opportunities are just like learning, like what's our learning for the week? Let's just do shared learning. And there's so much learning, especially with the world of AI. Like, hey, if you're confused, your team's even more confused, just have shared learning times. Like, there's so many opportunities in any one of these that hopefully, even if you take one idea away, it's a win.